Hello everyone and welcome to Wednesday's video. I hope you're all well. Today we'll be continuing the story of the Iron Man. So if you weren't here last Wednesday when we started this adventure, I would go back and watch that video first. But until then, here we go. Chapter 2. The Return of the Iron Man. One evening, a farmer's son, a boy called Hogarth, was fishing in a stream that ran down to the sea. It was growing too dark to fish. His hook kept getting caught in the weeds and bushes. So he stopped fishing and came up from the stream and stood listening to the owls in the wood further up the valley and to the sea behind him. "Hush," said the sea. And again, "Hush, hush, hush." Suddenly, he felt a strange feeling. He felt he was being watched. He felt afraid. He turned and looked up the steep field to the top of the high cliff. Behind that skyline was the sheer rocky cliff and the sea. And on that skyline, just above the edge of it, in the dusk, were two green lights. What were the two green lights doing at the top of the cliff? Then, as Hogarth watched, a huge dark figure climbed up over the cliff top. The two lights rose into the sky. They were the giant figure's eyes. A giant black figure, taller than a house, black and towering in the twilight, with green headlamp eyes. The Iron Man! There he stood on the cliff top, looking inland. Hogarth began to run. He ran and ran. Home. Home. The Iron Man had come back. He had got home at last, and gasping for breath he told his dad, "An Iron Man! An Iron Man, a giant!" His father frowned. His mother grew pale. His little sister began to cry. His father took down his double-barreled gun. He believed his son. He went out. He locked the door, he got in his car, he drove to the next farm. But that father laughed. He was a fat red man with a fat red-mouthed laugh. When he stopped laughing, his eyes were red too. "An Iron Man? Nonsense," he said. So, Hogarth's father went back into his car. Now it was dark and it began to rain. He drove to the next farm. That farmer frowned. He believed. "Tomorrow," he said, "we must see what he is, this Iron Man. His feet will leave tracks in the earth." So, Hogarth's father again got back into the car. But as he turned the car in the yard, he saw a strange thing in the headlamps. Half a tractor lay there. Just half. Chopped clean off. The other half missing. He got out of his car and the other farmer came to look too. The tractor had been bitten off. There were big teeth marks in the steel. No explanation. The two men looked at each other. They were puzzled and afraid. What could have bitten the tractor in two? There in the yard, in the rain, in the night, well, they'd been talking inside the house. The farmer ran in and bolted his door. Hogarth's father jumped into his car and drove off into the night and into the rain as fast as he could, homeward. The rain poured down. Hogarth's father drove hard. The headlights lit up the road and bushes. Suddenly, two headlamps in the tall treetop at the roadside ahead. Headlamps in a treetop? How? Hogarth's father slowed, peering up to see what the lights might be, up there in the treetop. As he slowed, a giant iron foot came down in the middle of the road. A foot as big as a single bed. And the headlamps came down closer, and a giant hand reached down towards the windshield. The Iron Man! Hogarth's father put on speed. He aimed his car at the foot. Crash! He knocked the foot out of the way. He drove on, faster and faster, and behind him, on the road, a clanging, clattering boom went up, as if an iron skyscraper had collapsed. The Iron Giant, with his foot knocked from under him, had toppled over, and so Hogarth's father got home safely. But the next morning, all the farmers were shouting with anger. Where were the tractors, their earth diggers, their ploughs, their harrows? From every farm in the region, all the steel and iron from all the farm machinery had gone. Where to? Who had stolen it all? There was a clue. Here and there lay half a wheel, or half an axle, or half a mudguard, carved with giant tooth marks where it had been bitten off. How had it been bitten off? Steel bitten off? What had happened? There was another clue. From farm to farm, over the soft soil of the fields went giant footprints, each one the size of a single bed. The farmers, in a frightened, silent, amazed crowd, followed the footprints. And at every farm the footprints visited, all the metal machinery had disappeared. Finally, the footprints led back up to the top of the cliff, where the little boy had seen the Iron Man appear the night before when he was fishing. The footprints led right to the cliff top, and all the way down the cliff there were torn marks in the rocks where a huge iron body had slid down. Below, the tide was in, the grey, empty, moving tide. The Iron Man had gone back into the sea. So, the furious farmers began to shout. The Iron Man had stolen all their machinery. Had he eaten it? Anyway, he had taken it. It had gone. So what if he came again? What would he take next time? Cows? Houses? People? They would have to do something. They couldn't call in the police and the army, because no one would believe them about this iron monster. They would have to do something for themselves. So, what did they do? At the bottom of the hill, below where the Iron Man had come over the high cliff, they dug a deep, enormous hole. A hole wider than a house, and as deep as 3 trees, one on top of another. It was a colossal hole, a stupendous hole, and the sides of it were sheer as walls. They pushed all the earth off to one side. They covered the hole with branches, and they covered the branches with straw, and they covered the straw with soil, so that when the finished hole was there, it looked like a freshly ploughed field. Now, on the side of the hole, opposite the slope, up the top of the cliff, they put an old rusty lorry. That was the bait. Now they reckoned the Iron Man would come over the cliff out of the sea, and he'd see the old lorry which was painted red, and he'd come down to get it and chew it up and eat it. But on his way to the lorry, he'd be crossing the hole, and the moment he stepped on it with his great weight, the soil, which was only held up with straw and branches, would crash down, and the Iron Giant would go into the hole and would never get out. They'd find him there in the hole. They'd then bring a few bulldozers and earth movers that he didn't already eat, and then they'd push the pile of earth on top of him and bury him forever in this hole. They were certain now they'd get him. Next morning, in great excitement, all the farmers gathered together to go along to examine their trap. They came carefully closer, expecting to see his hands tearing at the edge of the pit. They came carefully closer. The red lorry stood just as they had left it. The soil lay just as they had left it, undisturbed. Everything was just as they had left it. The Iron Man had not come. Nor did he come that day. Next morning, all the farmers came again. Still, everything just lay as they'd left it. And so it went on, day after day. Still the Iron Man never came. Now the farmers began to wonder if he would ever come again. They began to wonder if he would ever come at all. They began to make up explanations of what had happened to the machinery. Nobody likes to believe an iron monster just comes out and eats tractors and cars. Soon, the farmer who owned the red lorry said that they were using as bait decided that he needed it, and he took it away. So there lay the beautiful deep trap without any bait. Grass began to grow in the loose soil. The farmers talked of filling the hole in. After all, you can't leave a giant pit like that. Somebody might fall in. Some stranger coming along might just walk over it and fall in. But they didn't want to fill it in. It'd been such hard work digging it. Besides, they all had a sneaking fear that the Iron Man might come again, and that the hole was their only weapon against them. At last, they put up a little sign saying, "Danger, keep off," to warn people away, and they left it at that. Now, the little boy Hogarth had an idea. He thought he could use that hole to trap a fox. He found a dead hen one day and threw it out onto the loose soil over the trap. Then, towards the evening, he climbed a tree nearby and waited. A long time he waited. A star came out. He could hear the sea. Then, there, standing at the edge of the hole, was a fox. A big red fox, looking towards the dead hen. Hogarth stopped breathing, and the fox stood without moving. Sniff, 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 out towards the hen. But he did not step out onto the trap. Slowly, he walked around the wide patch of raw soil, till he got back to where he started, sniffing all the time out towards the bird. But he did not step out onto the trap. Was he too smart to walk out where it was not safe? But at that moment he stopped sniffing. He turned his head and looked towards the top of the cliff. Hogarth, wondering what the fox had seen, looked towards the top of the cliff. There, enormous in the blue evening sky, stood the Iron Man on the brink of the cliff, gazing inland. In a moment, the fox had vanished. Now what? Hogarth carefully, quietly, hardly breathing, climbed down slowly from the tree. He must get home and tell his father. But at the bottom of the tree he stopped. He could no longer see the Iron Man against the twilight sky. Had he gone back over the cliff into the sea? Or was he coming down the hill in the darkness under the high skyline towards Hogarth and his farms? Then, Hogarth understood what happened. He could hear a strange, tearing and creaking sound. The Iron Man was pulling up the barbed wire fence that led down the hill, and soon Hogarth could see him as he came nearer, tearing the wire from the fence post, rolling it up like spaghetti and eating it. The Iron Man was eating the barbed fencing wire. But if he went along the fence, eating as he moved, he wouldn't come anywhere near the trap, which was out in the middle of the field. He could spend the whole night wandering about the countryside along the fences, rolling up the wire and eating it, and never would this fence bring him near this trap. But Hogarth had an idea. In his pocket, among other things, he had a long nail and a knife. He took these out. Did he dare? His idea frightened him. In the silent dusk, he tapped the nail and knife blade together. Clink, clink, clink. At the sound of the metal, the Iron Man's hands became still. After a few seconds, he slowly turned his head, and the headlamp's eyes shone towards Hogarth. Again, clink, 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 went the nail on the knife. Slowly, the Iron Man took 3 strides towards Hogarth, and again stopped. It was now quite dark. The headlamps shone red. Hogarth pressed close to the tree trunk. Between him and the Iron Man lay a wide lid of the trap. Clink, clink, clink. Again, he tapped the nail on the knife, and now the Iron Man was coming. Hogarth could feel the earth shaking under the weight of his footsteps. Was it too late to run? Hogarth stared at the Iron Man, looming, searching towards him for the taste of metal that he'd made the inviting sound with. Clink, clink, clink went the nail on the knife, and crash! The Iron Man vanished. He was in the pit. The Iron Man had fallen into the pit. Hogarth went close. The earth was shaking as the Iron Man struggled underground. Hogarth peered over the torn edge of the great pit. Far below, 2 deep red headlamps glared up at him from the pitch blackness. He could hear the Iron Man's insides grinding down there, and it sounded like a big lorry grinding its gears on a steep hill. Hogarth set off. He ran. He ran home with the great news. He had passed the cottages on the way, and he turned down the lanes towards his father's farm. He was shouting, "The Iron Man's in the trap, and we've caught the Iron Giant!" When the farmers saw the Iron Man wallowing in their deep pit, they sent up a great cheer. He glared up towards them. His eyes burned from red to purple, from purple to white, and from white to fiery whirling black and red, and the cogs inside him ground and screeched, but he could not climb out of the steep-sided pit. Then, under the lights of the car headlamps, the farmers brought bulldozers and earth pushers, and they began to push in, on top of the struggling Iron Man, all the earth they had dug up in the first place, which made the pit that had been piled off into one side. The Iron Man roared again as the earth began to fall on him, but soon he roared no more. Soon the pit was full of earth. Soon the Iron Man was buried, silent, packed down under the soil, while the farmers piled the earth over him in a mound and in a hill. They went to and fro over the mound on their new tractors, which they'd bought since the Iron Man ate their old ones, and they packed the earth down. Then they all went home cheerfully. They were all sure they had seen the last of the Iron Man. Only, Hogarth suddenly felt sorry. He felt guilty. It was he, after all, who had lured the Iron Man into the pit. Thank you very much for listening along, everyone. Tune in next Wednesday for the next chapter in The Iron Man, but enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Take care. Bye!